How far is it across?
It's 21 miles across.
Currents changing every few hours. Freezing water. The hardest test in all of sport.
You think I could do it? Do you think I can?
Jerry, I'm going to start with you. Like, talk about what made you want to tell Trudy's story and talk about bringing it to the big screen.
Well, this all started about 9 years ago when Jeff Nathanson, a screenwriter that worked with us on one of the Pirates, came to us and he said, I can't find anything for my daughters to watch. So he went to a used bookstore and found this book, Young Woman of the Sea, and he optioned it and brought it to us. And it was such a beautiful story that I'd never heard of this girl. It's amazing what she accomplished. People get lost in time, and especially somebody like Trudy, who was an immigrant, she was partially deaf. She had so many things going against her, and yet she had this passion for the water. And it's such an inspirational story, and also reminds the world of the struggle that women had in athletics and everything. They couldn't vote in those days. So this is something that's important for everybody to see. It's something you can take your kids to, you can take your father. Again, I like to make movies about people who get forgotten in time yet should always be remembered. We did it with Remember the Titans and Glory Road, and that's so important, especially for Trudy. And we're so fortunate that Joachim waited a long time, wanted to make this, and the same thing with Daisy. So most of the people that worked on this film waited and wanted to be a part of it because it's really about something. It's about a struggle and about a woman that later in her life taught kids how to swim who were deaf and, gave a lot back.
Joachim, what about you coming on board? What did Jerry tell you, and talk about your weight?
I didn't know this story either. I was baffled that I didn't know the story because it was such a huge event when it happened, and possibly, in some way changing women's sports forever. And it had everything that I look for in a story. Obviously, it's a very dramatic, but it had such a big heart, and it was funny, it was scary, it was inspirational, and it was all on the page, written by Jeff Nathanson based on Glenn Stout's book. Almost like an obligation. I wanted to tell this story, retell this story to a modern audience and put Trudy back on the map.
Daisy, your performance in this is phenomenal. How do you prepare mentally and physically to take Trudy on?
Well, the physical was strenuous. I was basically learning a new skill at 30. The first training session I did with our amazing swimming coach, Siobhan O'Connor, who was a real life Olympian, I tried to do a 20-meter length and I stood up halfway and was like, oh God. So I did 3 months of training, and then we were swimming in the film, but we were also doing supplementary swimming around it, and then the big swim was at the end. But a big obstacle in that too was the mental, because there's only so much you can prepare for being out there. I just couldn't have understood what that was going to be like. Each time getting in, it's cold, the current is coming at you, but also the boat, when it starts moving, forms its own current. I had to keep in a certain distance from the camera because of focus. So there was a lot to contend with and get out and in and out and in. But aside from that too, playing someone who has this dogged determination is wonderful, and who has this joy for what she's doing is wonderful. She has difficulties. She is sabotaged. There isn't as much support. She's also struggling coming to terms with what her sister's going through. Because when she goes to the Olympics and has this awful time when she's apart from her family, she comes back and there has been this seismic shift while she's been gone. So she's also grappling with that understanding of what it means for her, what it means for their lives together. But even around that, the love that these two sisters have for each other and the love that Trudy has for swimming, it was something that she wanted to do. She had this goal and it seemed impossible, but she tried and it didn't work because of someone else, and she tried again and she succeeded. So there was so much wonder to play in all of that.
I love that. And I love the story of the family. It's so emotional following that. How do you balance that? The family story with Trudy's story of getting out there and doing the swim. Like, it's the pacing, right? And we've talked about this in the past.
Yeah.
Joachim.
King of pacing over here. That was equally important for me, was to tell the story about this family. And and I think they represent in a way the society of the day, you know, and the struggles and obstacles that Trudy had to go through. And I think it's important for the audience to also look at Trudy through the eyes of the family, you know, the strong mother wanting to support Trudy, and the father representing the men in society basically, and the obstacle that she had to, and tradition. They didn't know better either. I mean, this was what they were taught, so it was to break from that is what Trudy had to do.
Jerry, you want to add to that? Talk about getting the pacing right, as you are the king of pacing, of like...
You know, it's just when I sit in the theater and my butt hurts, I know there's a problem that we have to fix. Try to pace it up a little bit. We want to keep the story alive. You want to keep the characters moving through the plot. And it's so important because audiences now, especially young audiences, they have 4 or 5 second attention spans. It's unbelievable because they're on TikTok. Everything is so quick. It's 90 seconds and it's over. And so now, even more so, we have to make sure we're telling the story as efficiently and as best, and not ponder with any part of the story. I mean, there are moments when you have to reflect and feel the characters, but you also have to remember you have to move the story along.
And Daisy, you're also an executive producer on the film. Like, how did that help you being such a part of that creative process, giving notes to Joachim and Jerry and just taking that role on?
It's surreal. I mean, the truth is I've been really treated as a collaborator on almost everything I've done, starting with being 21 and being on a big film and being heard and listened to and appreciated. And this was no different. But coming into it, I loved the screenplay already. But there were things that felt really important to me as an actor playing. So initially I didn't come on as an EP, but me and the whole team and Jeff had conversations about the sister relationship, and there were various bits and bobs that we talked through, and then we had 2 weeks in Bulgaria where we actually had the time to go through scenes. But really I was treated as a team member, and it made me feel more so that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Of course, my performance was first and foremost to me, but I also understand, having done a few more films now, that we're nothing alone, you know. There's a whole team of people out there who need to be served. There's crew members who need to be served, cast members who need to be served, and everyone needs to be served equally. So having that experience of being able to do my thing and having my space to do my thing, and then getting to understand it as a whole, is really, really a privilege, particularly with this film.
Jerry, what does it mean to have this story out there now? Like, little girls are going to be watching this. This is something that, you know, people can take their nieces to, and we have another hero that we should have known about. We didn't till now, but talk about that.
Well, it's, you know, I've made a lot of movies. I've been around this town a long time, and this movie is the highest testing movie I've ever made, considering, you know, Pirates of the Caribbean, Top Gun. Emotionally, it really captures everybody. This is a movie that is going to be like the old Hollywood films. It's going to build through your word of mouth. And that's what's important, and that's what keeps people in the cinemas. This should be seen on a big screen. And if people talk about it, it'll be on more cinemas in more cities, because we want to keep the cinema business alive. It's great. It's fantastic. So it's really in your hands, people who love cinema and work in movies and television, but we need other outlets beside your home. I mean, we all have kitchens, but we all like to go out to eat. So hopefully people will go to the cinema and see this movie when it comes out. And I think we all got to tip our hats to Trudy for what she accomplished. And the fact that she got lost in time is terrible.
Jerry has been working relentlessly over the last year, obviously, to get this movie up on the big screen, because I feel that, and not to sound pretentious, but I feel that cinema is my art form, and I love seeing a movie in a social context, and I want to be on the big screen. That's where I think this story belongs as well. I made this movie for my daughters. You know, I have 2 teenage daughters, and I feel so lucky to have been a part of this. And this is, for the daughters of the world, I guess. So I'm hoping as many people as possible will see it.
Beautiful. And Daisy, for you, what does it mean to tell Trudy's story and have this out there?
I mean, in a really personal way, I had never had a sister on screen and I had never had a mother on screen, which seemed really strange when I read this. I have 2 sisters and we love each other to death. That relationship I have with them is one of the most important things in my life. So even getting to play with a sister on screen and getting to play with a mother on screen was personally wonderful for me. But also it just seems, it's really beautiful, honestly, the reaction we've been getting from people. It feels like something people want to see together. It feels like something people want to share with their brother or their child, or there's something for everyone in there. And the fact that in amongst all of that and in amongst just generally a beautiful film, we are telling this story that has been lost. And I mean, so many women have been lost to history, but to be able to tell the story of at least one of them in a way that I hope that she would be proud of is incredibly special.
Please spread the word. Tell everybody to go and see it. And thank you all for coming out this afternoon. And thank you to everybody here. And congratulations to you all.